everyone, welcome back to the second tutorial of the series on how to model using the box modeling technique. In the previous tutorial I went over how to collate a bunch of reference images to help us create our blueprints and topology plans, as well as giving us an understanding of what our model will look like. Okay, so what we'll do first, we'll open up Photoshop, new file, create the pixels 3000 by 3000, make sure they're in pixels, res 72 is fine, RGB color 8-bit, that's fine. Go OK, and I'll open up a new scene. Before we do anything else, I just want to go over the color swash, and I'll just make it the background grey, just so it's a little easier on the eyes. Just make it grey there. Okay, so before I get into it, I just want to explain what a topology plan is. Okay, so a topology plan is used to simplify the model to its basic form using simple shapes such as blocks, squares, and triangles. This way we can see the model as a simple shape and be able to ignore the extra detail until a later time. Okay, so if you go up to your file and we just want to place our reference image into this scene here. So if you just select place and find the file that you're using. So reference image, Crossbow reference, for you it should be Crossbow reference 1, but for me it's Crossbow reference 3. So I'll just select that. Should be the double barrel crossbow. So if I hold shift and Alt, it will stretch it in accordance with its ratio. So I'll just make it about a quarter of the canvas, press enter, and use the move tool to just move it down in place here. So once you do that, make the opacity a little bit lower just so we can start to override it a bit. So alright, I'll just go into my other file for a second, and I just want to show you what I mean by basic blocks. Now, the first step would be creating simplified objects or simplified shapes to represent our crossbow. So I'll just hide this for now, and as you can see, our crossbow is sort of like a rectangular shape, excluding the front piece here. Now the front piece is sort of like a cubed shape as well. Now don't worry about the bows for now, we'll worry about that later. We just want to get our simplified object or shape first for our crossbow. So if I turn that on, you should get something like this. Now to create straight lines, simply go to the brush tool, make sure it's on 4 pixels, and the brush is set to 100% hardness. If you can't see the brush presets, go to window and turn on brush. Make sure it's on hardness, no spacing or 1% spacing. Click an area, hold shift and click another area, and this will create a simple line for you. So I'll just go select blue and I'll just show you. Go to there and selecting the lines, holding shift, I'm creating these simple lines. So just create a rectangle that outlines the basic shape of the crossbow, so something like this, and then create some more lines in the front of the crossbow to represent a cubed shape like this here. Okay, so once you do that, just turn that off. We can then take a step further and create extra shapes to start creating the base structure of our crossbow. So as you can see here in my model, my lines, I've created the bows themselves. Now I simplified these to basic geometry such as rectangles, and I've just split them up into 2 rectangles there. So I'll just turn this off, or I'll turn it down so you can see the difference. And I've just simplified them to their basic core. So I've got that block up top. It's more of like a trapeze type shape. I've simplified the handle so it's a cylinder, and just added those rectangles on the side there. So once you do that, we can then take a step further and add a bit more detail to our crossbow. So as you can see in the front part here, I've separated that one block into 2 separate blocks. So I'll just turn this off. See how the blocks are pretty much separated by just turn that on. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Make sure you've got the bows in front of the main structure of the crossbow and not behind it. So what I mean by that is make sure your bows are in front here and not at the back here. So always be aware of these little fine details. As well, I've just added a bit of detail inside of this top piece here. So if I just turn this off, I've just added this little indentation in here. Whoops. In here. So I've got that little mechanism going from the top of this part inwards, and then having the little gap to the top part of the block here. So just turn that back on, and as you can see as well, it's just defining this part here. So the piece of block is stopped about a quarter of the way down, and then that new top piece here starts. So it goes all the way down, and then up, and then across again. So just be aware of these little details there. So just turn this back on. Also, I've changed the rectangle a bit more, so I've added a bit more detail around the bottom of the rectangle, and I've just added this little trigger part here as well. So I'm still ignoring the finer details such as this area here, these areas here, these indentations. So just refining the model little by little, and then getting that nice shape going on around the model there. So just turn this off, and then we can move forward onto this part here. So further on, I've added this spiked metal piece in front. Also too, if I just turn this off, as you can see, the spiked piece is protruding halfway out of the blocks and halfway in the blocks. So when you look at from top down, you'll be able to see half of this round spiked metal piece here. So just be aware of that when it comes to modeling or creating your blueprints. So I'll just turn that back on. I've also added the extra detail, the little groove to for the top arrow to sit in. So I'll just turn that off again. As you can see, the groove needs to be there in order for the top arrow to be placed, as well as the little triggers at the top there. So these little triggers up here. Okay. So I'll just continue on, and you should end up with a fully fleshed topology plan there. So we've simplified this model to its basic shapes, and then just refined it a bit more for us to use. Now, before I finish this tutorial off, I just want to go over what polygons are in 3D terms. Now, polygons are what make an object. So, for example, I'll create a simple square in 3D space. Now, this represents a polygon. Now, if you have several squares to create this will start to create our basic shape and begin to really nail out our object's shape. So they're pretty much what a polygon is. So I'll just undo these, I'll hide that, and I'll turn these polygon lines on just to give you an idea on how our model will be created. So as you can see, we've got about 5 polygons in the front, which make up our front bow here. So that's we'll take this into consideration when modeling our crossbow, as well as a few polygons around the base of the handle. So okay. In our next tutorial, I'll be going over what blueprints are and how we can import them into 3ds Max.